ever gets through, and it hasn't got through, Mark. And it's such a big issue for Labor. It was at the last election. Mr Rudd keeps saying he wants to push ahead with this approach, but you can't get it through the Parliament.
Well, let's remember at the last election, we took exactly the same type of policy to the election that John Howard took. I mean, even John Howard and Peter Costello, through the Sheargold report, realised that the only viable way to deal with climate change and bringing down emissions is through an emissions trading scheme. It caps emissions. It does it in an efficient way by allowing firms to trade. It makes polluters pay for those permits and then allows government to compensate households for the extra costs. So over 35 countries around the world are doing it. John Howard knew it was the only viable thing. Tony Abbott's the only one in this game who thinks there's an alternative.
Okay, Mark, one other issue. I want to get you first on the intergenerational report to be released today by the Treasurer, the third report. Talk of more incentives for older Australians to stay in the workforce. Is this just about getting Australians to work longer?
No, the IGR that Wayne Swan's going to release today is going to show we've got a very serious challenge ahead of us, and that is that there are not going to be very many people working to support all of the people over 65 years of age. It'll be down to about 2.6. It's currently 5. When I was born, it was about 7.5. So there are serious challenges for us to keep our economic prosperity up and a range of other things. Now, first of all, what we've got to do is lift the productivity of the country, and the Prime Minister's been talking about that a lot over the last couple of weeks. But we've also got to lift the participation rate of people who are able to work. Now, that's not just a challenge for more mature Australians, it's also a challenge for us for female participation, where our rate has frankly lagged behind comparable countries like the UK and Canada for too long, which is why Julia Gillard has talked for some time about lifting the participation rate in the country. But it's also about having a sensible budgetary policy which is going to deal with the fiscal constraints that come with an ageing population. Now, that is why it is so completely irresponsible of the Liberal Party to continue to oppose our changes to the private health insurance rebate. That what they are doing is depriving the federal budget of $100 billion between now and 2050 that could be put into helping the strains that are going to be placed on our health and aged care system through the ageing of our population. And they're doing that because they want to keep a tax break in place for households earning over $240,000.
Okay. Mitch, what do you say to that? I'll let you respond firstly to the health insurance rebate criticism, but also to the broader issue. Your former boss, Peter Costello, issued the first couple of these reports. It's been around for a long time. We've known it's a looming challenge. Is it time to increase the compulsory super contributions, for example, from 9 to 11, 12% or something?
Well, on the subject of superannuation, I think the important let it be. One of the most important things for people investing in superannuation is certainty. Now, we put in place a range of incentives when we were in government, and people are getting used to those. They're taking advantage of those. Give people certainty. I think that's the most important thing in relation to superannuation. But just in relation to the intergenerational report, obviously we support the concept of the IGR. We introduced it. We handed it down. It's a good practice to get into. The Labor Party were never very helpful at all when we were looking at intergenerational challenges, when we were looking at measures to assist make the PBS sustainable. Labor were of no assistance. When we were looking at paying down debt, Labor were of no assistance.
So what about the health rebate?
Well, glad you raised that, Kieran, because the private health insurance rebate, Kevin Rudd said before the last election that he wasn't going to touch. Not at all. He said that we're not going to touch it, not one jot, not one tittle. I'm not quite sure what that meant, but I think the intention was that it wasn't going to be changed in any way, shape or form. So the Labor Party are breaking an election commitment. And in addition to breaking an election commitment, to means test the private health insurance rebate, we'll see less of a take-up of private health insurance. It'll see more people put on the public health system, which will increase pressure on that system, which the government said that they were going to fix by the middle of last year and didn't, and said that they were going to take over if it wasn't fixed in the middle of last year and haven't. So Labor should stick to honouring their election commitment that they won't touch the private health insurance rebate.
All right, gentlemen, great to see you both. As always, a lot ahead of us in this first parliamentary week of the year. Mark Butler, Senator Mitch Fifield, appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thanks, Kieran.
Thanks, Kieran.
David Spears will return this afternoon at 4:15 Eastern for PM Agenda. As always, I'm Kieran Gilbert. Thank you very much for joining us. Thanks.
Facts